Well, hello, welcome to a brand new Football Manager 2019 experiment, and the first experiment on this channel with me, Mr. Graham 2. In this experiment then, we are going to have a look, see what would happen if Red Bull, the soft drinks company, set up another franchise team. In this case, setting up another franchise team in England and specifically in London. Red Bull, of course, as well as producing energy drinks, have in recent years expanded into sports, of course, with the Red Bull racing team in Formula One, which they bought out the old Jaguar team, and of course, perhaps more controversially, in football. They have got, at this point, I believe, four teams. We've got the New York Red Bulls out in America in the MLS, who've obviously been around for quite a while. We've also got Red Bull Salzburg in Austria, who are pretty consistently one of the top teams in Austria. Then, of course, most controversially, Red Bull Leipzig, which is their, in many ways, perhaps most notable venture, where they brought the playing rights to a lower league German team and have pumped in significant amounts of money and got them into the Bundesliga, where they've been qualified for the Champions League, challenging for the Bundesliga title as well. So it'd be interesting to see what would happen if they did something similar in England. There's also a team in Brazil, I believe, Red Bull, yeah, there you go, Red Bull Brazil, who they haven't really got particularly far yet, still in the lower divisions of Brazil, but a part of the Red Bull empire nevertheless. So in order to simulate what would potentially happen if Red Bull did something similar to that in England, I have used the Create a Club mode, and I have replaced, or for this simulation, bought out Hampton and Richmond Borough in the Vanarama National League South. In this scenario, Red Bull have bought them out, and they controversially moved the team up the road into a more central area in Westminster and rebranded them with a red and white kit as Red Bull Westminster, or RB Westminster, because that's all that can really fit in. So let's take a look at what the club is looking like. I've used the editor, obviously, to create as accurate a recreation of what I think a lower league English club would look like if it had Red Bull's ownership and funding. So first thing to note, really, like the other Red Bull clubs, we set it up with affiliations with the other four teams that they own. So New York Red Bulls, Red Bull Leipzig, Red Bull Brazil, and Red Bull Salzburg. Now I've done it pretty much similar to what the other clubs are like, but with a little bit more. So we have a look at New York Red Bulls. RB Westminster will be able to sign players on loan from the three top division clubs here, New York, Leipzig, and Salzburg. They're also going to play friendlies with them. They're going to get financial help from them, just about, I think it's £100,000 a year, or £10,000. Yeah, either I think I put £10,000, £100,000 from these clubs, just to give them a little bit of financial help, to help with financial fair play, things like that. They're also going to help with marketing relations and share scouting knowledge. That's the same for Red Bull Salzburg, although they're not paying any money. And then Red Bull Leipzig are paying, yeah, they're paying £100,000. Red Bulls are paying £10,000. But also, the one other difference is Leipzig, you can see here, have got first option to buy any of the players from Red Bull Westminster. This is the same, they have this arrangement with the New York Red Bulls and Red Bull Salzburg. If it ever happens that Westminster become the dominant club of all of these, then I'll untick that, and Leipzig will, have to give a first option to Westminster. But at the moment, Leipzig are clearly the biggest club, so they're going to keep that as well. So generally, then, it's worth pointing out I've increased the reputation of Hampton and Richmond Borough as they were up to 3,000. That is it was in line with some of the other clubs in the division. I specifically chose 3,000 because that's what Billericay's reputation is, and Billericay are a club who, they play in this division. They're a club with sugar daddy ownership that have invested quite a bit of money to try and get up through the divisions. It's a slightly higher reputation than Salford, which is another club in sort of potentially similar situation to this, So that was probably a good way to go. If we have a look at the finances, then the first thing I did really was make the club professional. I think that's something that Red Bull would definitely look to do if they bought a club. We've invested quite a bit of money, but not a crazy amount. £3 million into the bank balance just to help keep things flowing. Increase the transfer budget to over £100,000 and the wage budget to £36,000 a week, which should be more than enough for this level. The sugar daddy status was the thing I was the least sure about. I've put them as a back-end sugar daddy now. The other Red Bull clubs don't have a sugar daddy ownership, except for Leipzig, who have an underwriter. Now, if you don't, what the different types are. Basically, a front-end sugar daddy is someone like PSG or Man City, where they just pump in huge amounts of money constantly. A back-end sugar daddy, which is what we're going to go with, is somebody that invests lots of money to get them out of the division that they're in, get them into a higher division, but then they sort of stop. And then an underwriter is somebody more like Roman Abramovich, really, who invests money but expects to take money out, expects to make a profit. So we're going to go with a back-end sugar daddy now. That's what Ricky have as well. I think this is probably what Red Bull would do, at least until the team got up to the championship. When they get into the championship, if they ever do, then we'll switch this to an underwriter like Red Bull Leipzig have. So if we have a look at the facilities, this was another thing that I think realistically Red Bull would invest quite a lot of money in. They're going to be playing in the Red Bull Park. And we've got 3,500 seats to start with. This is what Hampton had anyway. But with an expansion capacity for 50,000, it'll be interesting to see if they ever get close to that. Then as for facilities, well, I assumed that Red Bull would probably invest quite heavily in those. So I've set training, youth facilities, junior coaching, and youth recruitment all as a 12. Not insanely high, but certainly one of the levels for this division. I've also set them as having some rivals from the sort of local areas, Met Police, obviously a lower league team, a lower division team, sorry, but then Chelsea, West Ham, Millwall, and AFC Wimbledon, some of the more local rivals to the club. So I am currently the manager, just because that's how we have to set it up, but I'm going to resign as manager of Red Bull Westminster, and then we're going to go forward 1 year and see how well they've got on, see how horrifically I've set this up, see whether the club becomes a financial ruin or not, and we'll see how things go. So we've gone forward 1 season, and it's been a pretty average season for Red Bull Westminster. Not in any danger of being relegated, but at the same time, not even particularly close to even the playoffs. Never mind the automatic promotion space is 61 points and a 12th place finish. Quite a big gap back to Truro in 13th, but quite a way off eventual champions Chelmsford. Obviously, I was the manager just at the very, very start of the game, but I didn't do anything. And I was, so the first proper full-time manager was Paul Cox, a former manager of Eastwood, Mansfield, Torquay, Barrow, and Guiseley. So an experienced non-league manager. Hopefully he can fire them up the divisions starting next year. Let's have a look, see at the transfers. How many players did they bring in? Did they spend any money? I can see it. Well, already it looks like they've spent some money. So quite a lot of players signed on a free. Sam Joel signed from Workington for £3,000. He looks a relatively decent winger for this level, really. A few other players coming in on frees. Nobody there I really particularly recognise. Some loans as well, although no loans from any of the affiliate clubs. Guy on loan from Charlton, which is relatively good for this level. It's the League One club. Brendan Sarpong Waiaju, a young fullback. It doesn't look anything particularly special, but somewhat decent. Now, they have started spending some money towards the end of the March period. Dave Tarpey signed for Barnet for about £6,500. He is a player who I've used a little bit in lower league saves and non-league saves this year. I think he's a pretty solid striker for this level. 13 finishing, 12 composure, pretty solid physicals too. He is a a pretty decent pickup, and to get him on a permanent deal from Barnet, not too bad at all. Also, Claudio Afuso from St Neots for 3.2k as well. Another young striker. He looks relatively decent as well. So some quite sensible signings there. Have a look at the wages in a minute. One player did leave. Marcel Barrington went to GDF in Guyana, I'm assuming that is. Has anyone been released yet? We haven't gone quite up to July yet. A few players did get released, but nobody of any real note. Let's have a look at the squad then. We didn't really look at the squad before, but it is all of those signings added into the original Hampton and Richmond squad. Sort of see how they did. So in terms of valuation, Dave Tarpey is the highest value player, although he is injured at the moment. Ferdinand Taki, who's another player they brought in, German striker, second highest valuation. He looks pretty decent for this level as well. And then, after that, no one really massive valuation. But some of the players that were already here, Morrell Williamson, Wellard, Wichello, they were already here. Sergio Menezio is a pretty good non-league player as well, but Tarpey the clear standout. In terms of wages then, he's absolutely the clear standout. £2,000 a week is a massive amount for this level, absolutely massive. And at Fuso and Temi Awiko, we're not looking at him, a centre-back, he looks pretty solid as well. Good marking, tackling and heading. Not particularly good in terms of positioning, but some decent physicals as well. The three of them all on more than £1,000, which is pretty significant for this level, and some pretty long contracts as well, up to 2021. So they're tying the players down. How do you think how the club are doing in terms of the facilities and things like that? Well, the reputation's gone down, not by much, but it has gone down. Finances, quite a lot of that money's gone. Still got quite a lot in the bank. Still got the sugar daddy, still got professional ownership, but a little bit of money's gone from the bank there. Doesn't look like they've used anything for the facilities. They're all still the same. So I think the last thing really to look at, let's have a look at the landmarks, see if anything's happened. Okay, so the club have, in April, they've raised the youth category rating to a category 2. That is interesting. There's a lot of clubs in the championship with a category 2 youth rating. So if they've already got a category 2 youth rating in non-league, it'd be interesting to see where they can maintain that. But also we need to look at their youth players as well. What was their youth intake? They've got 12 for youth recruitment, junior coaching, and youth facilities. So theoretically, they should be getting some really good regens coming through. Okay, we'll sort by value first of all. And we've got Jamie Fowler, 16-year-old striker, valued at 5k. He's unambitious, which isn't great, but he's not awful. Not awful for a non-league player. 9 finishing, 7 composure. Not ideal, but not awful. Dylan Randall is a youth player who's already here. He looks fairly good as an attacking midfielder. He played 42 games this season as well, which isn't too bad going either. Gozy Harding, the next highest value player, young centre back, pretty good marking, good teamwork, determination. Doesn't really look like they've got anyone ridiculously amazing. But it'd be interesting to see if their academy can produce any good players and whether those players get snapped up by any other clubs. Okay, I think that is all we really have to look at the moment. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go forward another 2 seasons. So we'll have gone forward 3 seasons in total. Hopefully, then, we'll start to see the impact of the money from Red Bull. Well, we've gone forward a further 2 years, so a total of 3 years since the club was founded back in the heady days of 2018. And the first thing really to note from this is that, Red Bull Westminster have been promoted in the second season, the 2019-20 season. They did get promoted from the Vanarama National League South into the Vanarama National, and they did it in pretty fine style, I would say, finishing in 3rd place in the table, but going up via the playoffs. Finishing 3rd, 2 points behind Farnborough 20 points behind Billericay, though, who won the league. Obviously, they are a sugar daddy club as well, so quite a lot of investment there. We'll have a look at them in a second. But going up by the playoffs, no bad thing whatsoever. Let's have a look how they did it before we look at this season and other stuff. And have a look at their schedule. I mean, fairly mixed at the start. Going out of the FA Trophy in the third qualification round, went out in the third qualifying round of the FA Cup as well. But it comes down to, well, March and a really, really strong end to the season, unbeaten during the last 3 months of the year, getting through in the playoffs against Woking and then beating Farnborough, who finished above him in the table, 2-1 after extra time to win the National League South playoff final. Dave Tarpey, still the main man, and he scored the winning goal in the 107th minute to send Red Bull Westminster into the Vanarama National. Well, let's see how they got on in the Vanarama National in their first season there and third season as a club overall. Well, third season as a rebranded club. So you can see they are playing friendlies against Red Bull Salzburg and Red Bull Leipzig, RB Leipzig. Scoring a goal in both of those as well. Narrow defeats to top tier teams, but pretty poor start to the Vanarama National. But things did pick up, got a few wins, got through the FA Cup second round before losing to Oxford. That would have helped the finances out of the FA Trophy, though, at the first time of asking. But things improved again. Another season where things were a little bit up and down, but improved towards the end and ended up finishing in, as we can see at the top there, 11th place in their first season in the Vanarama National, which isn't too bad. You would like a more rapid rise, I think, but not too bad for a club that's only started 3 years ago. One promotion already, and then a solid mid-table finish. Not particularly far off the playoffs either. Only a few more wins away from there, but quite a way off Leyton Orient, who got promoted. What's interesting is that Billericay, who were well clear of Red Bull Westminster last season in the Vanarama National League South, have got relegated straight away, whereas RB Westminster has stayed up. Well, I mean, almost 30 points better off than them. What has happened to Billericay before we look at any of the other stuff? What has gone wrong here? They've gone straight back down. Ah, there you go. Something very obvious. Glenn Tamplin, who is the real life chairman and owner of Billericay and briefly their manager, he is the Sugar Daddy financier. Well, he's gone, presumably because of financial concerns. And we have a look. The club no longer has a Sugar Daddy. Well, that's probably part of the reason why they went down. Well, let's have a look at Red Bull Westminster more closely, who have not been relegated. Paul Cox is still the manager, still in charge, 3 years there now, which is quite impressive, really, that a manager at this level, or any level in English football, has managed to last 3 years. Let's have a look at the playing squad before we look at some of the more hidden stuff. And if we sort by value, first of all, some players certainly getting a lot more value at the club. Luke Charman, the main one, £93,000 for him. He is their own player. They have him. Scored 10 goals this season. The striker looks pretty decent. Who did they manage to sign? We'll have a look who they signed him from in a moment. We've also got Lewis John, who looks like the centre back. Pretty highly valued as well. And Andrew Fox, the left back, again looks pretty decent. So making some decent signings could potentially help them to make a bit more progress. We saw by appearances briefly. So Luke Carey was the highest appearance maker, left winger on loan from Charlton. So still getting some loans. Don't appear to have any loans from Red Bull, any of the other Red Bull clubs. Let's have a quick look by wages as well. So Claudio Afusu, he's the highest Highest wage at the club, £2,800. That's a lot of money for any team at this level. I should have a quick look at the under-18s, see if they've got any regens coming through of any particular value or note. Sort by valuation. Craig Tomlinson, a centre back, got some pretty decent attributes actually. Pretty decent attributes. It looks like he made 5 appearances in the first team as well. Carl Thomas, right winger and striker. Again, a few decent attributes. Doesn't look particularly amazing. They are getting a few regens coming through. Right, let's have a look at the transfer history. We'll go back to the season just gone, and some fairly hefty transfer fees being spent here for a club at this level. 4 players signed for money. Kieran Thomas, the main one, £10,000, potentially rising to 13,000. That's a fair old chunk of a budget at this level. And he didn't really seem to play all that much actually. I take that back. He's played 70 games for them. 70 games. Definitely seems to have played quite a bit. Still plenty of players being signed on frees. No one being signed on loan last season, but a whole bunch of players being signed on frees. No one being sold for any money. So it'd be interesting to see if they could balance these books. Let's have a quick look at the released players for this season. Okay, a lot of players did retire and a lot of players were released, but still a massive squad now. So we go forward to the more recent season. Chris Dixon, who was the top scorer in the first season, he's retired. A lot of these players, a lot of the original players still left. Ricky Wellard, Tom Lovelock, they've all gone as well. So pretty much the whole squad's been replaced now from the original Hampton and Richmond squad. Let's have a look if they spent any money last time, and indeed they did. £45.5 thousand on Andrew Fox from Bromley. He's played 34 games this season at left back. He was the one we just looked at, wasn't he? One of the higher value ones, but quite a lot of money indeed for this level. A few other players being brought in for money as well. There's Luke Charman, the highest valued player. He's available. He was brought in on free, so not a bad piece of business. That's the 3 players that have been sold for money though. Ferdinand Taki has been sold for 6.75k to Chaminza in Germany. Not a bad piece of business. Erin Kinali has been sold as well. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the team that's brought in, but the one I'm being drawn to is this guy, Alan Chappell. He must be a regen. Indeed he is. Who has been sold to Blackburn for 70k, potentially rising to 140k. He does look pretty decent. Let's just have a look. We've got the editor up. Let's have a look. What is his potential ability? 138. Not anything massively to write home about, but a pretty solid championship level player, potentially Premier League player, if nothing else. Okay, let's have a look at some of the landmarks and see what we can see. So we already knew the youth category had been raised. Promotion, of course. Now, Chairman left and he's been replaced by a local businessman. I saw this happen because I stopped during the 2 seasons. I did see this happen, and I did fix this, and I made the new owner into a back-end sugar daddy again because, well, this is a simulation experiment. So as I said at the start, I believe Red Bull would fund the team in a back-end way until they got at least to the championship. So the game will probably force an ownership change because it feels that the money being spent is not sustainable and the club will be into debt. But if that happens, that is the one thing I'm going to change, I think, without a doubt, is that if the sugar daddy is replaced, I will add that back in because I think that would be realistically a constant. Interestingly, though, the stadium capacity has been increased to 3,900. Let's have a quick look and see if that's actually justified. What was the last home game of the season against Southport? 1,045 people. Let's have another one for comparison. Slightly higher there, so not even close to a max attendance, but there we go. Reputation has increased a little bit. Club attendance has also increased a little bit. And finances still professional, obviously still a back-end sugar daddy because I put it back in after the second season. But currently, negative bank balance could be a bit of an issue for them. Facilities, though, they all look the same, apart from the stadium, obviously. No real change there. Okay, so quite interesting. Some, progress, not rapid progress, but quite steady progress, which I think is what Red Bull would look for if they did take over a team. They'd want to get promoted, obviously, but they want it to be in a sensible and sustainable way. Now, I'm a little bit concerned that the money has all gone and the club is now in debt, presumably because of the massive wage bill and the massive maintenance costs of their facilities. So it'll be interesting to see how that continues. So potentially, I might give them a little bit more money. Potentially, I might increase the amount of money that they get sent by the other Red Bull clubs. Maybe increase it to 200,000 or something from Red Bull Leipzig. I don't know. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions in that one, or if you just want to let it play out as it is. As I said, I will keep re-adding the sugar daddy if the club gets taken over, and then I'll put it into an underwriter when the club gets to the championship. Okay, so things are going fairly well. We're going to leave it there for now. In the next part, I'll go forwards another couple of years. I think probably like 2-year chunks is probably the best way to look at it, and then we'll see how things are developed. So far, pretty steady progress. Potentially in 2 years' time, we'll be looking at a league club. We'll have to wait and see. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like. Leave a comment as well. That really helps the channel. And I'll see you next time.